Hello everyone out there. I am Ashley Setra. So I am from the PhysioZest and I am the founder and editor of it. And we at the PhysioZest strongly believe in certain principles of evolving and growing. We believe that every physiotherapist should have some mentor, someone who they can look up to, someone who they can talk to. And our main goal here is to bridge this gap between physios and these mentors who we look up to. So with here we have someone who has uh, you know walked up to the highest rung of self-actualization in the field of sports physiotherapy and sports science. Someone who has been in the Olympics game, none other than Dr. Nikhil sir. He completely aligns with our principles of evolution and growth and other things. So he is someone who's worked with Saina Nehwal, MC Maricom, Gagan Narang, and currently he is a sports physiotherapist, a sports scientist at Pro Physio, and he is someone who treats his athletes and patients with extreme finesse and dedication. I am like short of adjectives now. I just look up to him in so many aspects. So, warm welcome to you, sir, from the PhysioZest. Okay. So, before we start shooting questions to sir, I just want to put a disclaimer that this video is only for someone who wants to make a difference, someone who is aspiring to get into the sports physiotherapy rehab world, or any student who aspires to maybe get into this field. So it's for all those aspiring individuals and not someone who's just flipping through this video. The first question which I want to shoot to you, sir, is so from what I understand, many physiotherapy graduates choose to not select sports science as a post graduation. They might select sports medicine, sports rehab, sports some exercise kinesiology course. So, what thinking process and decision making goes behind selecting a post graduation course?
All right. So, if you talk about post graduation in general, I am against doing your post graduation immediately after your bachelor's. Post graduation is not a continuation of your bachelor's course. When you go abroad, you'll understand this philosophy, and I think it's high time we learned it as well. That you do your masters because you want to gain mastery over an aspect of your profession, right? It's not a continuation of bachelor's. So for anyone who's out there, I highly recommend that after you've done your bachelor's, get at least 2 years of work experience, work in different fields, and so that you know what sings to you. So if you follow whatever excites you and do a master's in that, I believe that you will be able to do a lot more, because now you're not doing it just because hospitals require a master's on your CV. You're doing it because you want to do it, and the results are always better when you're excited about what you do. And with regards to choosing which aspect of sports you want to go forward with, whether it is sports physio, whether it is sports nutrition, whether it is sports science, whether it is kinesiology, whether it is doing masters in biomechanics, why not, or sports medicine, it all comes down to, again, what excites you. So for me, I was always excited about the limits of human performance. How do you figure out what are the limits of your performance? How do you tighten the screws, get it a little better, make the person perform a little harder, CELTS, RTS, 4TS, as the Olympics say. Therefore, I chose sports science. In another world, I might have chosen strength and conditioning, because that's another something that really helps boost your performance and reduce your injury risks. And that is, I believe, a natural progression for a physiotherapist, where we are used to getting MMT level 5 in our patients. But when you talk about athletes, it's not 5, it's 10 or 15. So how do you get there? So that would be a natural progression for a physio. But again, it depends on what excites you. You have to be aware, 360 degrees aware of what's happening around you, and at the same time treat your athlete as you would a client, not as a friend. With regards to what kind of mindset that I learned from these athletes, which percolates into how you treat normal people who are not athletes is, let's take the example of Saina Nehwal or Mary Kom, since I worked very closely with them. Both of them have won Olympic medals. Both of them have been world champions. Both of them have been world number ones. Both of them have had a book and a movie come out on their life. So both of them have won Commonwealth. Mary's not won the Commonwealth gold. She's won the Asian gold. Saina's won the Commonwealth gold. So the question is, if you have been such world beaters, such achievers, and you're on the other side of your peak performance, because they're both aged, right? So what keeps you going? What keeps you performing at a very high level? Perseverance, right? Perseverance is something I've found is an incredible aspect of both these women. They have an unbelievable fire that just doesn't allow them to quit. They are very, very acutely aware that you're only as good as your last result. And that last point is something you should carry into your day-to-day practice. You're only as good as your last result. Okay, Hippocrates may have said 70% success rate is defining characteristic of a good physician, but you don't get to 70% unless you're aiming for 100. So every single day, every single patient, every single time, you have to give your best. If you have been tired, if you have been, it's okay, you've not given your best, and you're only as good as your last result. But it doesn't matter all the body of work you have done before. If today a patient comes to you and you're not able to deliver, then that's how good you are. So always keep fighting.
So one thing I'm taking back is you are always good as your last result. Being like just blooming out of flower right now as a physiotherapist, we all just get into that zone like we know everything. But yeah, we are good as your last result.
You may know everything, but can you apply it?
That's very important. Like that is needed. Like people think that they know everything, and that's what there's one psychology principle behind it. Daniel Kruger effect. Like people who are very intelligent, very dumb, they think that they know everything, and people who are very smart and very intelligent, they fear that they don't know something. So maybe as you go higher in the rung, you think more while applying. I think maybe.
I think that's called experience.
Yeah. Okay. So moving on.
I mean, the thing is that if you think about it, when you're graduating, all you have seen is one work environment. And you have a typical category of patients that come. You learn from your seniors who learn from their seniors, and you all learn from your teachers. When you step outside of your institution, the equations change. The kind of workplace you end up with, the kind of facilities you might have, the kind of patient load that comes to you, from what socioeconomic strata, from what kind of common injuries. People will have different nutritional backgrounds, which again affects the way their muscles work. So the number of permutations and combinations just expand. And therefore, when you come out of an institute, you may know everything to work in that institute at that moment in time. Granted. But once you step out of your institute, you may find yourself wanting because the circumstances have changed. Like for example, if a patient comes into a KEM OPD with knee pain and the person is 60 plus years of age, you can close your eyes and say it's an OA case and you can treat it like an OA case and just be done with it. But say if you're in a private clinic and the person is a 65-year-old full marathoner who's come to you with knee pain, it may not be OA. I'm not saying he doesn't have degenerated knees, but it may be a meniscus pinching. He may have cracked his ACL. There could be just a runner's knee syndrome. There could be an IT band syndrome. So suddenly the permutations and combinations increase. And so although you know everything you need to know to work in your institute where you have spent the last 4.5 years, your knowledge may be found wanting when you step out. So I don't decry anyone who thinks that they know everything, because you probably do in that instant of time. But as time changes, you may find yourself wanting. If you want bullet points, one is you need to have that done to work really hard on field, and you need to understand your sport really well, and you need to understand from the athlete and the coach their plan of action really well. And when you know these three things, you sort of have to work around it to achieve the goals that you have set for yourself. And always remember that the athlete is not your friend, he is your client or she is your client. And if you're going to post photos of yourself with your client on Facebook, remember you're going to alienate everyone else who plays that sport, because sport is extremely cruel. It's extremely unforgiving. It doesn't care who you are and what you have done. If you're not fit on that day, you're out. Look at Mo Farah, 4 Olympic golds, can't qualify for Tokyo, right? He won 2 gold medals in Rio. He can't qualify for Tokyo because sport doesn't care what you have done. You're not good enough, you're out. So between two athletes, if you're posted photos when one, the second person is going to think, oh, this person is closer to that guy, maybe I should stay away. So always remember they are your clients. Stay away from social media, or at least stay away from posting photos.
So moving on, a question which I personally wanted to ask you, like you have been in Olympics, and from the outside, we all believe that the highest rung for a sports physiotherapist / sports scientist is getting into Olympics. Okay, so that's what we think. You have been practicing with a clinical setup. What are your beliefs? Do you really think it's the last stage of self-actualization? What is beyond this?
No, I don't think so. I mean, Olympics may be the highest rung for an athlete. It's the pinnacle of their sporting career. It's the highest accolade that as an athlete they can receive. I mean, I'll give you a simple example. 15th of July 2012, right? We were training in Pune with Mary. By that time, she was a 5-time world champion and she loves to shop. So on a Sunday, I had taken her shopping in a mall and she just went about, doing her usual stuff. Nobody recognized her. Not one person. This is in Pune. She's a 5-time world champion. Nobody recognized her. Only a couple of people who were from the Northeast in a couple of the shops, they sort of looked at her as if she was familiar. Now, I don't know whether they thought that she was familiar or whether they thought that someone has come from their part of the country, but whatever. Fast forward 1 month, from 15th of July to 15th of August, and Mary landed at Indira Gandhi Airport in Delhi with an Olympic bronze medal around her neck, and there was a sea of people there to greet her. Absolute sea of people there to greet her, right? So, despite being undefeated for 11 years at the World Championships, despite winning 5 straight Olympic golds, she didn't have the kind of popularity that someone like her should have got until she got that medal, right? So Olympics is the highest rung of achievement for an athlete. It's the defining characteristic of being a sportsman. But for a physio, not really. I mean, you don't step into the ring, you don't win a medal. You're at the back in the room somewhere, right? So how can that be your crowning achievement? For an athlete, when they retire at the age of say 30 or 35 with an Olympic medal, by that time they are financially very. They don't have to worry what to do the rest of their life because of that medal. At 35, can you afford to retire? If you can afford to retire, then yes, Olympics is the highest rung of achievement for you. I can't. Okay, I wish I could, but I can't. I was hoping I would earn all my millions by the time I was 30 and retire, but I'm sorry, that's not happened. So it's not the highest rung of achievement for a sports physio. Like I said, you're only as good as your last result. Today, you may have gone to the Olympics. Tomorrow, you screw up with a district level athlete, and that's how good you are, right? So it never ends.
There are so many wrong concepts. Like everyone thinks, as a sports physio, you have to reach there. That's it. So yeah, thank you for busting that.
And to be honest, when you go to the Olympics, it's not fun and games. Like I have not seen a single Olympic event apart from the one that I was part of. So when you go there, it's not like, "Arey, chalo Usain Bolt ko bhagte hue dekhte hain," ya "Chalo jaake hockey dekhte hain." It doesn't work like that. You're working with the athlete 24/7. You're with the athlete. You don't know anything of what's happening with anyone else in any other sport. You literally don't. And it is so emotionally and physically taxing that I remember both the Olympics that I came back from, London and Rio, I would sleep for 12 hours and wake up tired. It took me 3 months before I had that chalo kuch kaam karte, that fire coming back up. You are so completely squeezed during an Olympic campaign.
Oh my gosh, this is very goosebumpy. Like if everyone thinks all this looks glamorous from the outside, but in reality, things are very different. I've seen you integrating technology in your practice, and sports science demands obviously to integrate technology. Can you shed some light for physiotherapists in India, for students in India, because they do not have much of this access to the sports science technology world, and how are you integrating it with your patient?
See, it's like this. An X-ray is an X-ray is an X-ray, right? Until somebody who knows what it is can interpret it correctly, right? X-ray is a black and white image. You can see it, I can see it, a radiologist can see it. You and I will be guessing ye kaun sa haddi hai, and the radiologist will give a proper diagnosis, right? So again, with equipment, it's not just about having the equipment, it's about how you use it. And if you are using the equipment to do any kind of assessment, how do you assess those results? Like, how do you make sense of the data that you're getting? Okay. Now, let's look at two aspects. One is sports science, one is physio. Since I'm trained in both, I can do both. But as a physio, you always have to keep your ear to the ground, and you always have to be up to date with what's coming out in the world. And what is even more important is don't get carried away. Don't get carried away because the ad says this is the next big thing that is going to cure all your patients. Never does that happen, ever. In our entire history, there has not been a magic bullet, right? So you have to critically analyze every piece of equipment before buying in, right? Let's take the example of a percussion device or a theragun that most people nowadays, even patients, are crazy about. Now the question is, patients can buy it. Okay, so do you need it in your clinic? The patient will say, "Ye mere ghar pe pada hai." So then there's no need. Number two, how does it actually work, and does it going to benefit? Is it going to benefit? Now, in my experience, percussion devices work by giving a gentle massaging effect, and it is useful for when you want to release a number of muscles without wasting too much time. But there's only one area where a percussion device can beat me. Okay, if I'm using my hands to treat a patient versus using a percussion device, my hands win almost every time except one. There's one single use where a percussion device does much better than a trained physiotherapist, and that is in where the brain has forgotten the muscle, where the muscle memory is a bit lacking. So if you get one person to do a single leg squat, okay, and you find their pelvis tilting, okay, because the hip abductors are not firing, and you use that percussion device on the hip abductors for a few minutes and then ask them to do the squat, pelvis is bang straight, right? That happens. That's because the brain suddenly remembers, "Arey, ye muscle hai," because it gets a lot of sensory feedback. Okay, so this incredible amount of sensory feedback to sort of awaken a sleeping muscle is probably the only area where a percussion device can beat the hands of a trained physiotherapist. So whenever you are looking at equipment, be very mindful of what it is that you're getting into. How is it going to benefit your patients, and does it gel well with your practice? Like, for example, I'm a big believer in recovery because in my experience with athletes, what separates two athletes at the highest level, I mean, everyone's trained, everyone wants to win, everyone works hard, everyone puts in the effort, everyone is hungry. Usually it comes down to who is fitter on the day. So if you have recovered better from your previous match compared to your opponent, you have a natural advantage because you're fitter on the day, right? So recovery has been something that has been very close to my heart in the last few years because that has shown incredible amount of results for me. And so, say for example, in my clinic, I have a cryotherapy, a rudimentary cryotherapy machine. The way I use it is a bit different, but anyway. So cryotherapy is something that works for me, but you have to be judicious. You can't keep it for 25-30 minutes, otherwise it sort of increases the time, inflammation time and all of that. So there are nuances to it. But does cryotherapy, I mean, just because I use cryotherapy doesn't mean it will work for you. If you're predominantly working in geriatric care, right, will cryotherapy actually work for you? Or would you rather invest in something which is more towards hot therapy instead of cold, right? Keep your ear to the ground, listen to everything, observe everything. Whatever devices are coming out in the market, whatever you see on YouTube and nowadays Instagram, look at it, definitely. Keep yourself abreast of all that information, but critically analyze it. Critically analyze it and understand what it is doing, how it does it work, and whether it will work for you. If it identifies all three things, that it does work, it does offer an advantage over what you're currently offering, and you do get the patients that can make use of it. Because if it's an expensive piece of equipment, you need to think about return on investment. Like I said, clinic is all about making sure that it keeps running. You can't throw your money down the toilet, like use it once in 15 days or once in a month and just store it somewhere else. It's going to go bad soon. So you have to be aware of that. And if the technology exists and if it is good and if it works for you, you should buy it. Don't think twice about it. Once you've done your research and figured out this works, you should buy it. Because that's the only way you'll get to play around with it, and the only way you can develop your own protocols and make sure that you're offering your clients something that delivers results. So that is what I would say with regards to physiotherapy, that keep watching, keep your ear to the ground, keep listening, do your own critical analysis. But once your critical analysis says that something is good, something is beneficial, and it can work for you, don't hold yourself back, buy it. Because you will get a return on investment, you will get better results, and your client load will also increase. Kabhi mat sochiye. Think before you have made a decision, but after you have made a decision, buy it. And with regards to sports science, that's a completely different tangent. It's like you're torturing the athlete to figure out their maximum capacity. So I do a lot of gas analysis for VO2 max, aerobic, anaerobic thresholds. I do lactate thresholds. I have motion sensors for biomechanical analysis, video analysis. I have pressure plates for gait analysis. So I use a lot of technology to sort of figure out where the athlete is holding back. For example, I take the motion sensors and pressure plates to a shooting range, make a shooter stand on the plate and shoot 60 shots, and then figure out the difference between good shot and bad shot. What was the difference? Say maybe when they hit the good shot, they were in perfect position. When they hit a bad shot, they were swaying forward. So then I put the motion sensors on and figure out where that sway comes from. Is it coming from the ankle? Is it coming from the hip? Is it coming from the torso? Is it that the weapon hand is falling down? So you can figure out where that bad shot is coming from and then give advice on how to correct it. Be it exercises, be it strength training, be it relaxation, be it hydration, be it improving your nutritional status because your muscles are all tired, whatever it may be. But all of this technology just helps me figure out that last bit.
We as Indian physiotherapists, we always have that inferiority complex. Our international counterparts are several years ahead of us with the skills, with this whole physiotherapy in the world of physiotherapy. So what according to you is the etiology, the source of this, and what can we do to bridge this gap? If you think there's a gap.
I don't think there's a gap at all. I mean, if you think about it, let me ask you, tell me one thing that you feel that we were a couple of years behind this. Maybe a new technique or a new understanding where maybe you think that we were 2 years behind the rest of the world. Do you have any such examples?
I feel like reading, like on LinkedIn when I go through articles on anything, like the main pioneers of formulating low back protocols or telling us that, low back pain, this thing happens or that thing happens. India may say all this is not coming. It's all coming from outside. People are telling from outside that this is there, ye karo. So this is what I feel.
What do they tell you to do at the end of the day?
So they tell us to do ye jo norms hai. Suppose in low back pain, rest hota hai. You do MRI, CT scan, ye sab. So pertaining to this example, they say all this is a scam. ऐसा कुछ नहीं होता है. You have to keep moving, you have to keep it. But इंडिया में कोई ऐसा प्रोपोगेट नहीं करता है कि पहले जब मैंने स्टार्ट पढ़ा था कि this CT scan is a scam. मैंने बाहर से सुना ही तो जाके I came to know. So I feel
बाहर तो इंडिया से ज्यादा CT scans होते हैं.
Yeah, but
बाहर तो इंडिया से ज्यादा MRI scans होते हैं.
Feel that all the things
absolutely not. Absolutely not. See, I'll tell you what. It's one person's perspective, right? If you say CT scans and MRI scans are not useful and you don't do them and something turns out wrong, who gets sued? Right? So You may want to say that MRI mat karo, CT mat karo, and as a physiotherapist, I have told so many people there's no need to do MRI scans. I already know what is wrong, and MRI scan is not going to add to my further knowledge. Again, if the person has not recovered in a couple of weeks' time, right? If the person has not improved in a couple of weeks' time, hasn't followed the trajectory of improvement that you think he should have followed based on your diagnosis, then what? Then the person again asks, should I do an MRI scan because I'm not getting better? What do you answer? Because at this point, if you tell him don't do an MRI scan, he will switch physios and he will still get the MRI scan done.
So, but all these courses and other things.
My point is, don't go by just one person or one guiding philosophy that CT scan is a scam and MRI is a scam. It isn't. These are extremely useful pieces of technology that help you identify problems. Now the question is there misuse of CT scan and MRI scan where they are ordered just because, even though there was no indication, CT and MRI was ordered? Yes, there are. Where isn't there, right? Anything you see, there is always a chance for abuse. Like for example, when you go to a physios, ultrasound usually doesn't work in most cases, but we still give ultrasound. I haven't used electrotherapy equipment for last 12 years. My problem was different. Where do I carry all this equipment when I'm on field and search for a plug point? So that's why I had to abandon electro and work with my hands. And now it's become a habit for me. But that doesn't mean I don't use electro at all. I still have a freezer in my clinic where I have my cryo stuff. I still use percussion devices. I still use compression devices. I may not use your traditional IFTs and ultrasounds, but there are other electro devices that I do use. So to just go with one philosophy that CT and MRI is useless, no, it isn't. It may be abused, it may be disused, it may be misused, but it is not useless. It is important in certain points, right? And ये बाहर से आ रहा है ऐसा नहीं है. If you look at traditional doctors, if you go to your really 60, 70-year-old family doctor or 75-year-old family physician, they will never tell you to do even blood tests. They will just give you a few medicines on your parcha and you'll get better. So, is it ancient knowledge or is it new knowledge? I completely disagree with the point that we are 2 years behind everyone else. I think a lot of research that happens abroad, I mean, once you go abroad and you study and you see the kind of research they do, you'll understand it's not all sunshine and roses. It's a lot different than that. They get paid to do research, so they have to do research. So वहाँ भी काफी सारा abuse वगैरह होता है. So before you read any article, please check the power of the study and please check the relevance of the study. So those two things you have to see before coming to any kind of conclusion regarding the veracity of any kind of conclusions that they have found, right? And secondly, at the end of the day, if you have back pain, okay, ठीक है, CT नहीं किया, MRI नहीं किया, क्या दिया लेकिन? You gave rest, you gave support, you gave heat, you gave exercises. Apart from these four, are they telling you to do anything else?
No, they have other.
कुछ भी करो, right? Do anything in the world, right? MRI करो, मत करो, medicine लो, नहीं लो, your rest, your exercises, your heat, and your back support. These four stay common.
So you still think that we are not behind them? Like we are, in fact, we think so. That we are behind. Okay.
Yeah, there's no need to think bad about yourself. That doesn't mean you shouldn't keep reading. You should. But before believing everything that comes out of there, check the power of the study and check the relevance of the study before making any conclusions. Like if they have got 50 people who are residing, who are university students and done a study on them, does that really match up to your population, which may be 65-year-old people coming to your clinic in Mumbai? Do they have the same access to what do you call it? Everyone's driving around in cars with escalators? No, people are climbing staircases. People are walking. People don't really have all those things. The nutrition status might be suspect. Vitamin D levels might be off. Their previous history of exercise might be off. They may have undergone some kind of degenerative problems or reproductive issues. So there are so many things that could have happened. So you have to see whether that study is relevant to you. You have to check the power of the study before blindly accepting. That's not to say that the research done abroad is rubbish. It is brilliant. and I've been there, I've studied there, and I can tell you some of the research that comes out is extremely inspiring and extremely enlightening. But as with everything else, it's always a diamond in the rough. So you have to keep sifting through 50, 100, 200 papers to find those pure gems which will redefine the way you work.